Biggest test of the season coming up for the Ohio State Buckeyes. They've got the Iowa Hawkeyes coming to Columbus this weekend, a team that certainly looks way better than they have the last one in probably 2 years. Defensively, still elite. They can run the football really well, but they have some vulnerabilities that Ohio State's going to look to exploit. Let's focus mostly today on when the Buckeyes have the football, what they can do, and where they can make it hurt for the Iowa Hawkeyes. We got plenty to get to on this episode of the Buckeye Breakdown podcast.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State
with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today.
Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. I'm Brendan Gulick along with Anthony Moeglin, and glad to have you on board on a Thursday night as we're talking Buckeyes and Hawkeyes. Getting ready for a big game here this coming weekend. 3:30 kicks Saturday at the Shoe. I was pretty good. They're pretty good. And the Buckeyes are going to have certainly a good test this weekend. I'm looking forward to seeing how Ohio State plays against what I consider to be a really good defense and probably one of the 2 or 3 best defenses that they'll see throughout the course of the season. Yeah, Anthony, what do you think? This Hawkeye team's for real.
Yeah, this is obviously the best test that Ohio State's going to have on both sides of the football. And it's funny, the way that this season has kind of progressed. Each week has gotten progressively a little bit tougher. And it feels like next week against Oregon is like the pinnacle, if you will, of the first half of the season. And Iowa is just that next rung up that that Ohio State has to conquer. And the fun part about this is that we're finally playing in our weight class. You did so last week against Michigan State, and I thought there was a lot of good from that game and some stuff that you can kind of continue to get better at. But for this week, this Iowa Hawkeyes team, everything you think about when you think Iowa Hawkeyes, you think of tough, veteran, hard-nosed, like old-school style football, and this version of them is no different from the years past. We'll get into Coach Parker a little bit. I mean, he's been with Kirk Ferentz as long as Kirk has been at Iowa. Hasn't been the defensive coordinator the whole time, but I mean, he's been terrific on the defensive side of the ball. And, in so many ways, man, Iowa has the stability that a lot of programs across the country wish they had. We'll certainly dive into some of that. All right. Some offensive impact players for Ohio State. I guess, first of all, let's just think about it this way. Who stands out to you this week as somebody you think could have a really big week? Yeah, big week for me. But before we get to that, I'll be remiss in saying that it's finally nice to hear you. Last time we were on camera and live, for anybody who joined us after the Michigan State game, yes, they decided to mow right behind me for 30 straight minutes. And it was a wonderful experience, but nice to hear you. No, there's a handful of guys on the Buckeyes offense that are obviously those impact players. But for me, and especially one coming Saturday, is Emeka Egbuka. I think he's starting to play like second fiddle almost to Jeremiah Smith, but what he did on Saturday against Michigan State really stood out to me. And it wasn't that he almost had 100 yards and he had a touchdown receiving, but it was what he did in the run game and what he did from a blocking perspective. There's a really, really good clip compilation of that game from Dane Brugler of him just being a nasty blocker, just finishing dudes through the ground. And we both saw it, Brendan. We both talked about it, and we talked about it in our post game, and it was very evident, and it was so cool. I remember one specifically. It was on Jeremiah's reverse for a touchdown. Emeka sealed the edge, and you can see it on tape. He eyed his guy up. It was a linebacker. He kind of pinned him in the inside and finished him on the ground and popped up and that went crazy. Like the whole sidelines went nuts. Brian Hartline got a penalty because he was on the field because everyone was so excited, not because of the touchdown, but because Emeka is your best player. He's your oldest guy. He's your senior leader in the receiving corps, and he's willing to stick his nose there and make an impact, not only in the pass game, but to impact for his teammates in blocking for him.
You know who I think's been like maybe Ohio State's best player is G. Scott.
Yeah. you and Kevin, man, I can't get away. I love tight ends and I love G. You and Kevin, man.
Listen, I feel that way, but I may have had a little birdie plant a bug in my ear that said, hey, just because I'm not on the show tonight doesn't mean we can let it slide that G. Scott's been playing great. No, G has been really good, and I love his evolution this year. Looking forward to seeing him playing well this weekend. If you're going to beat Iowa, you got to have the tight end playing well. But I had a hunch that was going to get under your skin a little bit.
It was hook, line, and sinker. My first initial thought was no way. I'm like, wait, is he actually being serious? I'm like, yeah, freaking Kevin, man.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, Kevin's been riding the G Scout train pretty hard this year.
Yeah, he has. No, another guy, especially in this game for me. I should say two guys. It's your two-headed monster in the backfield. It's Travion Henderson and it's Quinshon Judkins. This game has the potential. Like if you're Iowa, your whole entire goal in this is to shrink the game, right? They're going to try to run the ball with Caleb Johnson when they have the football. And when you do that, and I said it on Tuesday, it's not Ohio State shouldn't be concerned about him breaking 3 or 4 80-yard touchdown runs. That's just not going to happen. What will happen is the Iowa offense will just wear you down, and all of a sudden you look up and you've only had 1 possession in the first quarter and maybe 3 possessions in the second quarter. And what that does for you as an offense is it forces you to execute every time you have the football. You're not going to have 12 possessions in this game, but if you have it, you got to be able to execute. And to do that, you got to have a really strong run game to continue to possess the football and move the sticks. Yeah,
it's a great point. Some of the things that really stand out to me with Ohio State, and we'll get into this a little bit later in our fifth part of this conversation, but Ohio State's been outstanding in the red zone.
Yeah.
And if Iowa wants to win this game, first of all, anybody that's going to beat this version of Ohio State is going to have to drag them down into the mud, because you're not going to get in a track meet and beat this Ohio State offense if you can't stop them. But one way to do that is to create turnovers in tough spots in the field and try to make them play the way you want to play. So we'll get into that a little bit later on, but especially in the red zone, the Buckeyes have been just terrific. And I totally agree with you. If Ohio State can run the football well, that's going to wear down Iowa mentally more quickly in this game, because they've generally been pretty good against the run this year. All right. Who are the Hawkeyes defensively? Obviously, the next guy up, Jay Higgins, is going to be a big focal point of this, but this defense is really, really solid again.
Yeah, it's really solid. Coach Kelly said it today. This is it's going to be the best coach defense that Ohio State has played, and you see that at multiple levels. And a couple of the reasons for it is it's a veteran group. It's a bunch of guys who have been there. Jay Higgins, especially, like we said, we'll get to in a minute. He's a fifth-year guy, still making a high impact. But one guy in the back end to really keep your eye on, Xavier Nwankpa. And I apologize if I mispronounced it. It's a tough one there, but just a stud in the back end. And he's a guy that came into Iowa, and this is a rare guy for Iowa. He's a 5-star recruit. They don't get 5-star recruits at Iowa. And he's made a nice impact so far early in this season, but he's also run side by side with Jeremy Harris, who is on the back end. He's your guy who's kind of been your ball hawk. Got 2 interceptions on the year. Is tied for the league lead in that. But this team is starting to figure it out. They had one really disappointing loss, right? They're 3-1 on the season, but that disappointing loss came against their rival, Iowa State. And in that game, they had a chance at the end, right? They had a chance to shut the door. They're up 19-17, and Iowa State just got the football. And Iowa State then goes on a 2-minute drill drive to kick a field goal, 56-yarder to win it. And since then, this Iowa defense has only gotten better. That was kind of their low point. Their last time out against Minnesota, they shut out the Golden Gophers in the second half to go to a 31-14 win. So they have veteran guys who've been there. They've experienced a little bit of adversity, and they're stout on the front. They're stout in the middle. They're on that second level of the defense at the linebacking position. And on the back end, they have guys that maybe can't consistently run with the Buckeyes, but if you do make a mistake, they can make you pay for it.
I think one of the things they've done really well is frustrate teams.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a calling card for them anyways. They do a pretty good job of, when you're trying to move the football against them, they just make it just annoying, just frustrating enough that sometimes you lose your edge a little bit. And that's something Iowa doesn't do. They don't lose their edge. They are the least penalized team in the country this year. They're very disciplined, and they make you play really, really good football. I don't think there's any secret here, Anthony. I mean, I think Ohio State, they're favored by 20 points in this game for a reason, but I could certainly see an instance where Ohio State wins this game by 35. I could also see an instance where Ohio State is in it in the fourth quarter with him.
And that goes to, if you make a mistake, they're going to make you pay for it. These guys are going to do it. So it's like everything is really connected in this. If they're able to run the football just a little bit, and we've seen teams, Akron did it on us, Marshall did it on us, Michigan State early in the game did it on us, where they've kind of moved the football. If you get into a game like that, where, like you said, they drag you into the mud, and then Will Howard or somebody maybe fumbles or makes a bad decision throwing the football, they're going to make you pay for it. And when you do that and you lose possessions, that'll just shrink this game. And there you go. If you're able to execute well and you get this thing into a track meet, you win by 40. But if you don't, it's going to be a tight one. And that's not something you want to get into on Saturday against this team, because you don't want to really stub your toe in this one at all.
Yeah. All right, let's talk Jay Higgins. I mean, not just the staple of this defense, legitimately right now playing like a top 10 defensive player in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the year, it's just been fantastic. 34 total tackles, 12 solos, and he's playing linebacker, right? So you're thinking, all right, he's getting this stuff in his nose in there on the run. Not just doing that. 2 passes defense, 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble. This guy's just kind of everywhere. And one of the things that's like most impressive to me is he's a 5th-year guy. This is a guy who's a fifth year dude. He didn't transfer. He didn't move anywhere. He's been an Iowa Hawkeye. And when you have guys like that who know the program, love the program, have that culture built into them, it's rare in this day and age, right? In this transfer world. But he's a guy that can make an impact again. If you slip up or if you miss a block, he's gonna figure it out. Or if he blitzes and gets a sack, like knowing where number 34 is on the field at all times is priority number 1 for the Buckeyes anytime they have the football.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, I think that's probably where the game plan starts.
Mm-hmm.
If you're Will Howard, I think you have to be really cognizant, not just of Higgins, but of how he's lining this defense up. I haven't watched every snap of Iowa this year, but what I have watched of them, generally pretty impressed with their run fits.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Higgins is a huge part of that.
Yeah, and this is a team that doesn't give up points, and they don't give up yards either. And they're giving up 13 points a game, just north of 13, and they're giving up 270 yards of offense. And that's right. That's like in Ohio State's ballpark, right? Ohio State a little bit better, but haven't played to the competition that Iowa has. But that's, it's apples to apples right there. But you're in the same ballpark, and these guys on defense, and we've seen it early on where, hey, if a block is missed or an assignment is missed or we're not as sharp as we need to be, this is a team that, again, is the best competition you faced. They're going to make you pay for it. So you have to be on your P's and Q's, and this group is going to force you to do that.
And listen, they've only given up 7 touchdowns and 2 field goals over the 4 games they've played. It's just under 14 points per game. They're one of the better scoring defenses in the country. To your point, not quite where Ohio State is, but they've played a harder schedule than Ohio State thus far. That's for sure. They are tough to move the ball against, and generally, on the ground, they're as good as anybody. Ohio State is the number 3 ranked rush defense in the country. Iowa's number 4. They're giving up 62 yards per game this season on the ground at an average of 2.4 yards per carry. So I think the team that wins that wins this game is going to be one that probably runs the ball a bit more effectively. That puts up an awful lot of it puts up an awful lot of attention on their offensive line, and both teams generally have offensive lines they like, but this is a little different challenge.
And what I would also add to that is from a quarterback's perspective, speaking about Will Howard and what his approach needs to be on Saturday, is like, hey, there are going to be drives where you're not always going to be in second and manageable and third and manageable, where you're way ahead of the sticks, where we've been really used to playing so far early in this year. Saturday, there's going to be times when you get stuffed on the run and you're in 2nd and 10 or you're in 2nd and 9. And for Will, it's going to be really important to make really, really good decisions. And sometimes those decisions are throwing the football away. Sometimes those decisions are taking the check down because nothing's open downfield. So this is going to have to be a really mature game from Will Howard. And this is not to say he can't do that or he hasn't shown that ability, but it's going to be very, very important for him to just take what the defense gives you. And sometimes taking what the defense gives you is throwing the football away and not taking the sack and not taking the negative play to keep Ohio State's offense in it. And if they do try to shrink this game like they're going to, if you can just move the sticks a little bit, you're going to break their will, and you'll do it in an easy way. So for Will, it's got to be a real focus on some of those details there.
See a comment from John saying they're giving up 18, not 13 a game. I don't know what John's looking at there. I see 55 points allowed in 4 games at 13.8 points per game. So if I have something wrong there, I apologize. But
we aren't math guys, Brennan. We aren't math guys.
Hey, look, man, 55 points in 4 games is it sounds like 13.8 to me, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, listen, we've had a chance now to see probably, I think it's safe to call him the most exciting player in college football right now in Jeremiah Smith. He and Alabama receiver Ryan Williams are certainly taking the country by storm as maybe the 2 best wide receivers in college football, and both of them are freshmen. I don't think we're going to actually see Jeremiah Smith make a push at a Heisman Trophy this year. I know that's. I know you're like on this train here, but
I may have gotten over my skis a little bit. But everyone's talking a little.
No way! I can't believe it.
We got everyone's talking Ryan Williams for sure from Alabama. You got Jeremiah. You got Travis Hunter out in Colorado. Obviously, there's guys everywhere. Jalen Milroe. Some of these guys. Maybe I'm a little over my skis and Jeremiah Smith going for the Heisman, but what I will say, this guy's been spectacular, right? Throughout the season. He's an 18-year-old kid, 4 games, 19 catches, 364 yards, averaging 19 yards a catch, as long as 70. He's got 5 touchdowns. In 4 games played, he's got 5 scores. And just last week was really cool. I keep going back to it. I brought it up now in 3 straight shows, and I'll ditch it after this one, I promise. But just hearing Emeka talk about how mature he is and wanting to learn the game of football, like understanding that he has all the abilities, he has all the skills, he's been blessed by whatever you believe in to be 6'4" and have the best hands you've ever had, but he's committing to the mental part of the game and listening to Emeka Egbuka teach him and listening to Coach Hartline teach him and making sure that he can do everything in his power to be at his best on Saturdays is pretty darn cool. And then when you see him just freaking snatch one out of the air like this, you're like, you have got to be kidding me. This kid's special, man.
I mean, the touchdown catch with one hand was outrageous. And in real time, I was more impressed with that one. Mm-hmm. Looking at the replays and seeing that the first catch, I mean, he did it while he had it wasn't just a face mask. It was a hand in his helmet, in his face. To come
getting hit.
Oh, ridiculous. In double coverage.
Dude, I will say, like, it's really cool watching it, and it kind of got overshadowed by what Ryan Williams did down in Tampa, or excuse me, down in Alabama on that one. But still, those 2 kids, like, just true freshmen, dominating, being really good, going to be in college football for the next couple of years. And it's for Ohio State fans, it's hilarious because you just reload the gun. You go from Marvin Harrison to now the next best guy in Jeremiah Smith. It's pretty darn cool. Maybe not a Heisman this year. If I'm looking into my magic 8 ball, I feel like there's a Heisman maybe in a couple years. So maybe this is just 2 or 3 years early, this block here.
Yeah, not an outrageous thought a couple of years from now for sure. And look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll do something ridiculous, but he's, I'm just not trying to go too far down the line. You're like, he's not even on Heisman betting boards right now.
They don't see it like I do, Brennan. They don't see it like I do.
And listen, I'm not disagreeing with you. I watched Vegas now. I'm like, number 4 is the best player on the field. He's the best player on the field.
Yeah,
I'm in. But like, I don't think he's going to have the stats to really make a push.
It's so cool.
I would be interested to see is he a legit contender for a Biletnikoff?
Yeah, and
awesome.
It's amazing what he does for this offense too, because he opens some things up for Emeka. He opens things up in the run game. Because what are you going to do? It was hilarious. They were in the red area on Saturday night. I don't remember the exact situation, but I looked out on the field and I was like, all right, who are you doubling here? You got Jeremiah to one side, you got Emeka to the other, you got Carnell in the slot, and you're like, pick one, pick your poison. By the way, you got Travion in the backfield. It's like there's just nothing teams can do to combat that type of stuff. It's amazing. He's a special cat.
Yeah, and he's probably the most impressive player on this offense, and there are plenty to choose from. Mm-hmm. When you think about this Ohio State offense through 4 games, 3 non-conference games that got progressively slightly better from a competition standpoint, and now you have a barometer of playing what I think is actually a pretty good Michigan State team in the grand scheme of things on the road in that environment. You're going to come home, you're going to play a good Iowa team, and then you have a really good test next weekend out west. Hard to travel, that long of a distance, and you're going to play a really, really good Oregon team. What do you think about the way Ohio State has actually put some things on tape so far through a month?
Yeah, it's really funny because I go both ways here. The first one would be like, yeah, they've been good, and I think that they've been good, but there's still a ceiling to get to. There's still room to grow, which it's got to make you feel really good from a coach's perspective. Like, hey, we've done a lot of good things, and Coach Day's talked about it. Like, even from just Will's perspective, he's got a lot to get better at. There's a lot of things that he can continue to get better at while still playing great. So that part's really good. You say that and you're like, oh, they must be, middle of the road, middle of the pack. They've scored 52, 56, 49, 38. So their good is spectacular. And it's funny because Ohio State fans are just so like, spoiled's not the right word, but I'll go with blessed of like, hey, we can nitpick, and you and I certainly have. And I've been on this train too of like, you can get better here, get better there. And then you look up and you're like, holy cow, you scored, 24 points at halftime, and you finished the game with 40 plus. And it's like, they make it look so easy. But in my opinion, I think Will can continue to take steps to improve. What I'd like to see from him is continue to push the ball down the field. Like, I think that if there's one element of this offense that could really improve is that vertical pass game. And yes, there are a ton of explosive plays, but how have they come? They've come by broken tackles or Jeremiah just being faster, or Emeka breaking a tackle and being faster. I'd like to see that next element of, all right, we're great in the short pass game. We're good in the intermediate game. Let's take that next step in the long pass game to see how this offense can really open up in the future here.
So one of the things I think will really hold Ohio State's feet to the fire there is when they get a chance to play a team that can get home with 4, right? If you're trying to put a bunch of pressure on Will Howard and you can't get to him with 4, and you got to start committing more guys to rush the passer, that's 1 less or 2 less guys you're not having in coverage. And I feel like we've seen enough explosiveness from this Ohio State offense that doesn't really feel like the recipe to beat them. Like, even an Akron or a Western Michigan, I don't know that I would say like, hey, we're gonna bring 6 hats all the time and try to make this happen, because I wouldn't want to leave guys on an island, against this receiving core. I think the potential vulnerability for Ohio State is if they see a defensive line that can stuff the rush and provide enough of a pass rush that defensively you have an extra 1 or potentially 2 guys playing pass defense, where it forces the game to get a little tighter, the windows to get smaller, Will Howard's clock to get a little faster in his head. That's where I think this team could get, a really good challenge. And Iowa, I think their defensive line is pretty good. I don't know that I think they're elite, but I think they're really good.
Yeah.
And so we'll see if Ohio State can provide the offensive protection they need. At times that hasn't been a problem, and at times hasn't been great.
Yeah. And I think to that point too, that'll just, when that day does come, it will further just emphasize Will Howard's emphasis on being sharp. Like, hey, these windows are going to start shrinking. We need you to like start taking those steps up, which goes back to, it's funny how this schedule just has worked out nicely. Like, each week feels like it's getting just a little bit harder. It's not like last year. I know we jumped right into Indiana. Sure, they weren't the Indiana of this year, but you jump right into Big Ten play, and then you go on this path to kind of escalate. This year, it's been like a steady increase. You're getting better competition every week, and you're just having to steadily improve. I think they've done a really nice job, but the exciting part is they got room to get better. And I won't riff on this too long, but Chip Kelly getting just more and more into his bag is going to be fun to watch as these opponents get bigger or better and better.
All right, let's close on this topic as it relates to Will Howard, since you're the former college quarterback here. Where, in your mind, where has Will taken substantial steps forward these first 4 weeks?
Yeah, I think for me, with Will coming to Ohio State, he kind of built his brand at Kansas State on being like a run guy, and like, yes, he could throw it, but he relied a little bit more on the run when he was at K-State. I've been really, really impressed by him this year. He sits in the pocket and he stares down the barrel of the gun, and he's doing things to be a quarterback, not just an athlete back there, because Ohio State's got plenty of those. You got if you wanted to run, we're going to hand it to Quinshon. We're going to hand it to Travion. That's what we want to do. Will, we want you to stand back there and throw it. I thought he's done such a nice job of doing that. And yes, he's had a couple turnovers. Some of those things those things happen. That happens. But I think he's done a really nice job distributing the football to all the guys. Sometimes that can be a big challenge too, when you have 4 horses on the outside who all want the football. And by the way, everybody, they let you know they want the football. If they do it nicely or meanly, that's one thing. But they will certainly let you know that they're open all the time. But he's done a really good job of spreading the wealth, sitting back there and being a quarterback for this team. And that's what I've been most impressed about.
I think Will's having a ton of fun.
That's the best.
I think he's looking around. He's like, this is sweet.
Have you seen it?
Look who I've got here and here and here, or I can hand the ball here. This is great.
And I also think too, like Brendan, you've been close to the program much longer than I have. It beyond him like having fun with his guys, it feels like he's having fun like wearing this logo or this logo here. Like it feels like it really means something to him to be an Ohio State Buckeye and playing the horseshoe and put the Buckeyes on his helmet. Like that part's really cool too.
Yeah, and I mean, I think back to the spring where it was, it was decision time for him. What was he going to do? And he basically said, look, I was either going to come to Ohio State or I was going to go to the draft. And it, when the opportunity opened for him in Columbus, he's like, yeah, I would love to take that chance and put the draft off a year. And I mean, at this point so far, I think he's done well for himself. Now, I'll tell you this, in talking to a couple of people in NFL circles, what he's done so far has been kind of irrelevant in terms of his draft stock. The game they have circled is Oregon. If he doesn't play well against Oregon, he's probably, at least at this point, probably not going to find himself in a day 2 draft slot. Yeah. If he goes out and plays really well against the Ducks, you're going to start seeing the Will Howard draft stock rise quite a bit, because it's going to be far and away his biggest game, his biggest challenge. And I think this week can really prep him for next week, because he's going to see a defense that's fast and sound, and they're going to force him to make really smart decisions. And he's still got really talented guys around him that are probably going to execute well. Mm-hmm. But these next 2 weeks for sure are going to be important for Will. But every NFL person that I have talked to about this has said, hey, the Oregon game's the one we got circled, because we want to see if he can do it in a primetime game in what will certainly be Ohio State's defining game in the first 2 months of the season.
And the only thing I would add to that is I know all those scouts are hoping for that to be the case and hoping for him to be good, because who does he remind you of? There's one, I mean, he's Josh Allen 2.0. Like if he can be that kind of a dude, we've seen what Josh Allen can do. And,
you think he's got the same arm strength that Josh Allen does?
I don't think so. Yeah. He obviously looks like a carbon copy. He runs, he's big, he's strong, he runs hard. I don't think arm strength, but yeah, I mean, dude, it's been fun to watch. It's been fun to see him in this program and watch him continue to get better and better.
He's got a great attitude. He's physical for his size. He's way faster than you'd think for his size. He's proving to be a really, really good quarterback, and he's a great kid.
Yeah.
I hope he continues to do well. But man, I'm telling you, in a week and a half when they're playing in Eugene at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, there's a lot of people to be paying attention to whether or not Will is holding his own in that game.
Yeah.
All right, we got plenty more to come on the Buckeye Breakdown podcast the rest of the week, and certainly on Saturday at the Horseshoe with the Buckeyes and the Hawkeyes. Any parting thoughts? Anything you didn't get off?
I would just say my thing is, like, this can be one, and I don't think it is. I think last week was your sleeper game coming off of a bye week, but for Ohio State this week, let's just get in there, take care of business. Let's look good. They've started to really start to stack these good weeks on top of each other. I think this defense has been playing really good. We touched on them on Tuesday. And for this offense, continue to be explosive. Like, this is going to be a really fun game to be going against competition that is close to us. Go out and show the part. Go out and look the part and dominate and take care of business.
Lots of coverage over on si.com/college/Ohio State. That's our written home for Ohio State Buckeyes on SI, and certainly hope you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can keep doing stuff just like this. All right. For Anthony Moeglin, I'm Brendan Gulick. Thanks for hanging out on the Buckeye Breakdown podcast. Look forward to seeing you again real soon as the Buckeyes and Hawkeyes get ready for a big mid-October matchup in Columbus.